Hi, my name is Rinchen Dolma. I have a white wall behind me and two mustard colored pillows, one of which resembles a hair part of an elderly woman and a black and red braid. I myself am wearing a v-neck gray sweater and have long black hair that is braided into the side. I have long turquoise earrings and I am slightly tanned and have black glasses and I'm a Himalayan woman.
All right. Hello, my name is Sonny Duan. In the background, I have a bedroom with a bookshelf, a mirror, part of a bed in frame, and a closet, as well as some paintings and frames on the floor. I am East Asian. I am a feminine looking person. I have kind of shoulder length, curly red hair, and I'm wearing a square neck, red and black pattern top. All right. So, okay. Rinchen, can I start with saying, hey, what are your pronouns?
Yeah, for sure. My pronouns are she and her.
Okay, perfect. I use any pronouns, they, she, he, whatever is cool. All right. Um, I think we're just going to start with the questions now. So, let's just start off with when were you a part of Paprika?
I was a part of Paprika in the 2019 festival. Um, yeah,
Yeah, and what program were you a part of?
I was part of the director's lab.
Perfect. So tell me, what's your favorite memory from your time at Paprika?
Um, I think my favorite memory in my time of Paprika was, um, oddly enough, it was the that I spent alone actually writing,
Mm-hmm.
and in my own kind of creation process of um, being in a studio alone and moving a lot and then writing or not writing at all but moving a lot, and waiting for letting the writing kind of come. But it was actually the amount of um, intentional time that I had set at that time in my life where I was just purely dedicated to writing. And it's funny because I was in the director's lab, but I chose to write and direct. And so it was a good um, kind of moments of solitude where I spent a lot of time alone just writing and dreaming. Yeah.
Oh, solitude, alone, writing and dreaming. That is gorgeous. Um, so what was the biggest lesson that you learned from your time at Paprika?
I think the biggest lesson I learned was that that writing is very hard.
Hmm.
And although that solitude, there was good memories of it, it was also very, very hard. But I think what I also learned, a big lesson, was to ultimately in that process of creating and creating alone is actually just to be just to be gentle with yourself,
Hmm.
because it's really hard. And what I liked about Paprika was, um, even though there was the festival that we were showcasing our work in, the biggest lesson was in that gentleness, approaching my work as also something that wasn't like a final product, but it's just like another step towards um, myself kind of coming into my own practice. And so I was working towards, yes, the festival, but and also an understanding that I was also very gently approaching my work, myself, and that particular story, and that Paprika was just another step, like obviously a very initial step in that process. And so that's really informed my work now in understanding that I don't have to be so precious with like the work necessarily or the timeline that I'm working with, even the kind of conditions that I think that it has to be done in, um, and so those were all like things I was able to learn and contain in a in that experience in the festival, um, and that's really helped me like even now and moving forward.
Yeah, of course. Kind of tying into that, what is the one piece of advice that you'd share with current Paprika participants? And this could be specifically from the director's lab, could be any unit that you like.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think And then this is actually a piece of advice that I got actually from Courtney Chang Lancaster, who was my mentor in the program. And it was that, like, especially now that we're in a pandemic, everything actually feels very like everything is even more taxing than it used to be. And obviously we're actually in a forced kind of isolation and solitude. But one of the piece of advice is that no matter like what like or how what the scale of it looks like every day, the kind of act of just committing to your practice in whatever way that is, even if it's very small, like you just read an article, or maybe some days you're feeling really great and you want to pump out like 10 scenes or whatever, or maybe you just put in like a submission, whatever it is, that those are all meaningful acts of your practice. And so that small commitment is something that um, you can do on a daily basis, and it doesn't have to feel it doesn't have to feel overwhelming, because I think at times we feel kind of restless and anxious. We're like, why aren't things happening? Why aren't we moving
Absolutely, yeah.
along? You know what I mean? So and I remember asking Courtney that, because I think a lot of things were culminating, and I was like, oh, like, how do you manage this? And she was like, you just like every day just commit to one thing, um, and that commitment is actually just an act of commitment to yourself, right, through your practice. And so I think that's a piece of advice I would give, especially in the kind of the context that we're in, is like
Hmm.
we're already in a like we're already in a kind of industry where we're hustling, and that's real. But like, not to feel so defeated if, like, on a daily basis you feel like your productivity isn't super high, or you're not pumping out things in a quick enough, or in bigger volumes. It's okay, like, as long as you can commit to yourself and your practice, even in small ways, it's okay.
That's fantastic. That is a very good piece of advice. And so to pivot, what is the worst piece of advice you've ever been given?
um
Put someone on blast right now.
oh my gosh. That's good. Actually, you know what? It's like I don't really have. I've been really privileged to have a lot of great mentors who are mostly um, women in my life, that have been really influential and given me so much time to kind of reflect. I think I don't. That's a wow. That's a hard question. Trying to think of someone who gave me like really bad advice. Um,
If you've always had great mentors and you can't think of anything, I also would like to hear what is something that you thought about, the industry that you learned to be untrue. Your advice to yourself, I'd guess,
well,
that
I
you
mean,
learned was bad.
I think it's speaking along the lines. I think the idea that people aren't approachable, like they're not human like you, and that you can, they're you can just that we're not audacious to want to be like, hello, I really admire you, I'd like to speak to you, do you have the time of day? Like, I think people might feel really intimidated by meeting certain folks who are in power and in leadership, but to not feel like that, and understand that they were you at one point. And for the most part, everyone's like really, really supportive and want to share resources. And I think especially for like leaders of color, women of color, they are championing, folks like us. And so um, that they would be interested in talking to you, and that you are interesting enough to want to engage with and have something valuable to share. Um, so yeah, I think that's something I would say about that. Because yeah, they're just regular people, and maybe it's also because of COVID times that people are now like equally in these same boxes, that it feels less intimidating to interact with them. So maybe this is actually a good time to try that.
Absolutely. If I was doing this in person, I'd be freaking out right now. So, yeah. I mean, you're writing, like reading about the things that you've written and directed. I mean, so much of it is so innovative. The thing that I'm really interested about is your choices to incorporate multilingual writing into your plays. Do you want to speak a bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, um I think it's like I posed the question to myself, like, what does it mean to write from an authentic voice? And so for me, these characters, because they're displayed several times, but also because actually in different parts of the world, such actually most of the world outside of the West, like people are multilingual, and it is a normal part of their life. It's like a very like beautiful way in which those societies also function. Whether it even be that there's one language, but there's several different dialects, right, and things like that. That people have been and continue to navigate many languages, and that is something that is most definitely part of my upbringing, my life experience, and actually the reality of my community. And so I can't, like, when I was writing that piece specifically in Paprika, like when I think about that character and how many languages live in her, those are the ones that, there's three in that case. And so I um I wanted to speak to that, but also I think in the context of the the kind of nature of not just like migration, but also of colonization. Like we're speaking in English right now, but we actually all probably speak different languages and have different mother tongues, right? And so
Hmm.
understanding the reality of those kinds of contexts as well. Um, and I think at first I was like kind of reluctant, being like, oh no, like what will people think? And like, is this weird? And but I kept focusing on about, again, like how my lived experience isn't really unique in the context of like in the global context, and so that people will get it, even though it's in several languages. Like I think it's already hard for a lot of people to digest a language outside of even like another European language.
Absolutely.
But in my context, I think just trying to be honest and authentic in understanding like what it means to have an authentic voice, and asking myself like what are the ways that that voice manifests. And for me, it's in several languages.
Yeah, that is such a cool answer. Like way more like specific and interesting than I even thought. And it honestly ties in really well to our next question is, what are the things that you like that inspire you to create?
Oh
This
gosh.
could be like media, it could be your experiences, anything that comes to mind that inspires you.
Yeah, I think a lot of things that inspire me in, I think definitely women, like women that are around me. Um, and because of my experience with migration, I've been thinking a lot about land, and actually how landscapes have been also been really informing my kind of um, my storytelling, and also like kind of embodied practices like movement is something I'm also really interested in. Um, Labor, and like I think for me also, like I realize now, like I really want to tell a lot of stories that reflect like working class folks, um, and not to romanticize that experience, but like because that's one that's very close to me, and that's one that I find a lot of beauty in, um, and in also again in a kind of global scale too. It doesn't only have to manifest in a kind of Western context as well, because for me that feels like it's part of what the majority is actually kind of living through. Um, yeah, and I don't know. I think just um, I don't know. I think I mean, my default answer is always like women. Women always inspire me. They make
Hey,
me.
sometimes the default answer is the most true.
Yeah, I think I think just even the act of like storytelling for me is like very agency driven, to even have the capacity to imagine, and dream up those kind of possibilities outside of yourself or around yourself. Like that's always really inspiring, and I have to remind myself, like, yes, being making art is like scary and it's hard, but there's actually so much choices that we get to make when we're making our work, that allow us to kind of tap into different options, and that allows us to um, yeah be able to engage in a world that feels a little bit safer, that feels a little bit more fun and joyful and celebratory, that feels like we're making that we're pushing back, all those different things.
Yeah, if it means anything to you, I feel the exact same way just talking to you right now. I mean, like reading about you and like seeing the things that you've done, it's inspiring to me as well. Um, so we are in a time where we don't have a lot of human contact, and I was wondering, what is the last gift that you gave someone?
Mm.
Could
Actually,
be physical, could be anything.
yeah, no, it's actually super recent. So it was on Mother's, it was just Mother's Day, right? So
Yes.
um I obviously I have my own mother, and then I also have a friend who just recently had a baby. And so I just felt like I just wanted to make something for them. So I made both of them. I'm not actually a baker, and I'm not very good at baking, but I was like determined to make something like from scratch for them. And so I actually made them like two homemade strawberry shortcakes. And then I gave one to my mom, and then I obviously gave one to my friend. I delivered it to her place, and I surprised her. She was very surprised. She's like, "What are you doing here?" And yeah, so that was kind of my most recent gift, which was on Sunday. Yeah,
That is so sweet, like literally and figuratively.
yeah.
um, Hard pivot. I want to talk about what your wildest, most aspirational goal in life is. Even if you don't think it's going to happen, I want to hear it. I want to know what it is.
Oh wow. Yeah. Um, I want to. Oh my goodness. Wow. Okay. Wait. What is my wildest, most?
I know it's a hard question.
Yeah. Like I have a bunch, but I don't think they're wild in the sense that they're unattainable. I guess one thing would be just to be able to um yeah, just I guess right now especially it's actually to travel to several countries and like actually do live there and do like full on residencies, and just be able to create and engage and just greet like different lands and different landscapes and communities. And so I know that doesn't seem wild, but like I think in the context of now, it does.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that would be one I can think of right now.
In the context of now, it is certainly aspirational.
Yeah, it's super actually.
So, along the lines of goals, I really want to know what your like who your biggest role model was growing up.
Oh gosh, it's again, it's gonna be my mom. My
Oh,
Yeah, it's my ama. I think for me, it's always gonna be her. I think because like I was um, heavily informed by her um, kind of uh, yeah. I think for me, it's like what I love about my ama is that like in her there's like a duality of like love and not duality. There's like many complexities, sorry, not just two, but many complexities of holding like tenderness and care, but then at times obviously like rage and like trauma and suffering and whatever. But something about my mother and the ways that all these things that are complex are contained within her has taught me a lot about how to survive. And even when I came to Canada, like when we moved here, I remember my mother telling me a lot about the realities of the world. And I don't think I wanted to hear it at first because it was like too much. It was too overwhelming. But and I didn't like it when I was young at that time because I was like always like, Mom, like why are you such a Debbie Downer? But but I understand now that those are all acts of love, and I recognize that not all of our parents and cultures like express love the same way. And so whether it be in telling you outright what you know white supremacy is going to do to you, or um, making you food from scratch even though they're just so tired, or whatever it is, the different ways in which I understand the manifestations of love and how that is laboring, I think has been like heavily informed by my ama, and how and also a lot of women like her in my community and many other communities, but I think specifically in my household, she really yeah, she just was like a container for that. She really held us together a lot through this experience of having to uh, yeah, immigrate here and things like that. Yeah.
That's beautiful and honestly very relatable with the whole, Asian mom classic way of saying I love you is like, hey, did you eat yet? Can I make you something
Exactly.
for like lunch or
Yeah.
something? I mean, that absolutely, like, I completely understand that. Um, I mean, along those lines, what is one thing that you made you who you are today? And if the answer is still your mom, I absolutely get that.
Yeah, no, I think for me, yes, definitely my mama, but like I think also, I think it's just a collection of um, people in my community, people who are friends, people who are mentors along the way that have kind of allowed me to think, um, like shift myself in a way that feels safe and feels like um, welcomed. And I think it's very hard to say one person because of the fact that like we are like a culmination of stories of people and all those things intersecting. And so I think it's just, yeah, I think it's actually like, I can think of very pivotal women maybe that I've met in my life that like actually changed certain things within the course of my life. But yeah, I can't pick like one per se. I think it's obvious it's probably my mom, but but obviously I've kind of uh, been able to make my own way, and through that I've been able to yeah, meet different folks and different women. um, yeah, a very tricky question. I can't just do one, sorry. um,
I
but
absolutely get it.
yeah, and oh, so did you say one thing or one person? That's maybe I would have.
One thing, like truly it is anything that has shaped you.
Oh, I
You
see.
are welcome to answer in whatever way you want. It could be an
Okay,
experience even.
yeah, I think that in that case, then it would just be like, I think one thing for sure would then be my kind of experience of theater within a community, a kind of community art sort of context. And like when I was young, I didn't know anything about anything, but I was dragged to like an audition with a friend of mine, and it was for like a community theater in Kitchener Waterloo, and it was with the Caribbean African Association. And for me, it was kind of yeah, it was kind of pivotal for me in the sense that I was in a community setting, and we were meeting for the purposes of telling a story, but we were doing through movement and song and dance and obviously through acting. And because I also grew up on Bollywood, it was like my first experience of doing that in real time with a real community. And so that I think kind of made me who I am today in the sense that like I was able to be in a community setting, be able to engage with art and to have like meaningful interactions through the vehicle of storytelling all at once. And that also happened much earlier in my life when I was like quite young and in high school. And so that allowed me to imagine different possibilities for myself outside of what I thought was expected of me. Um, because another community, another racialized community, had created that space for me. And yeah, I don't think I would have actually been here talking to you if it wasn't for the fact that I was able to be in that musical. And then I was in that musical, like I was in a second musical with them, and then that slowly kind of got me started, you know. And that's when I started to realize like the the kind of different practices that I could tap into, even just in my own body, and that how rewarding and empowering that is.
That is okay. That is really cool. Sorry, it's just really interesting to hear, the pivotal moments in people's careers, especially when we're talking about, like the theater industry. Taking a hard left turn, let's liven it up a bit. We're we're very philosophical right now. What is a trend that you just can't get behind? It could be like social media trend, fashion trend, anything, something that just doesn't make sense to you.
Yeah, no, for sure. I I actually just can't get behind a lot of the social media now, actually, like in the TikTok and things like that. I don't think I can get behind. Like I obviously watch them as they come, but I'm not like very obsessed with them. And I know that a lot of
Mhm.
people are. And I think also a lot of younger people like um maybe that's not true. There's a lot of people I know who also make TikToks, but I mean even like younger folks, like I think about my cousins who are like tweens, and they're just like obsessed with it. And I don't think, I just don't have the same kind of like passion for it than them. So I'm not, yeah. And when I say I can't get behind it, I just mean like I don't think I just haven't, made one, and I don't really have an account that I want to make in the future. And so that's one thing I'm not so good at, and being on and performing all the time in that kind of context, because I know it's like very heavily like content driven. So you're just like constantly making content for people to consume. And so I can't really get behind that, because sometimes I'm just like depleted. I'm like, how are you making this every day? So
Yeah, this is not one of our 20 questions, but I just have to know, if you did make a TikTok account, what kind of content would you make?
gosh, oh my gosh, I don't know. It would either be, yeah, the first thing I thought was like either be food related, so I'd probably just be eating the whole time or talking about food, or it would be probably maybe movement related, some sort of dance sort of thing, or lastly, it would just be me talking to myself about random things, and maybe someone in the world would like vibe with that.
I would get TikTok and follow you for daily Rinchen talks. So what's a question that you hate being asked? Because I'm asking you so many questions, I want to know for the future, what should I not ask you?
Yes, I think that any question that is related to like asking me to labor in ways that don't feel safe. And I think also like questions, I don't like when people like ask questions to, obviously, to women of color in which they're not willing to do the work to investigate those things, and they're asking you to either be vulnerable or to like expose things of yourself so that for their benefit. Those kinds of questions really irk me. And I think as I start to reflect on the times that I did do all that labor, I think about how unfair that felt after the fact, and how actually we have the ability to say like, actually, I'm not going to do this work for you because I don't have the capacity to have to do all this. Well, just like this time dedicated to something that like isn't actually on me to do. And so I think, yeah, I think any questions that have to do with people trying to excavate from you something that they could just do on their own is something I'm not about, because yeah, I think about, right, especially again in this kind of context, like our energy is so precious, our well-being is very, very precious. And so when people are asking a lot of you and asking you to labor in those ways, it's really, really problematic. And so yeah, and I find that that's like literally the problem. It's like when people are asking, especially in this time that we're living in, it's like asking people of color to yeah, to do most of that work on their behalf is like not okay.
Yeah, Google is free, folks. Google is free.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not gonna lie, I was doing a little bit of brain editing, like, am I gonna ask any questions like that? But thankfully, no.
No. It's okay.
Yes. Okay. You talked about your TikTok possibly being about food. Not that you're gonna make a TikTok, but it might be about food. I want to know, what would your last meal be?
Oh my gosh.
You know you're gonna die. What is your last meal? What are you choosing to eat?
Actually, it's strange enough I think about this often, because I'm not so obsessed with food. But I'm gonna say something. Oh gosh, I think it would have to be.
I know there's so many options.
So many options. There's so many options. I want to say like dosa, which is like a South Indian dish, but then I don't know. Like I think actually there's this like barley soup that my dad makes that I really like.
Ooh.
Yeah, and it's called trotu, and I really like it. It's a very like simple kind of traditional Tibetan meal, and yeah, I think I'd like that. It's like really, really hearty. I don't know. It's weird because I also think about my last meal, but I also thinking about like who I'm gonna eat with, because we eat very communally, and so
Yes.
I
Who would
think
you eat with?
yeah, probably my whole family, and
Oh my
um,
God, oh, that's so sweet.
probably my whole family. And when I say whole family, I mean like everybody that's like kind of scattered around the world too. So it'd be like a giant meal together. But um,
Mhm.
yeah, I think just my family. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the "what do you want your last meal to be" question really tells a lot about a person. And like, I mean, I think I feel informed about you just from like that answer. Um, so we're gonna go back to talking about theater. I mean, we had a little nice interlude where I'm just trying to get to know you, but talking about theater specifically, what do you wish you could see more of?
Oh yeah. I think one thing I'd not one, there's so many things I'd like to see. I think with theater, like there's just so many possibilities. And so that's why, and we shouldn't stop dreaming up more possibilities through the medium of theater, because it's just like, yeah, it's just so plentiful. And so um I think definitely I'd love to see more more kind of diversity in worldviews around storytelling. Um and similar to what I already do now, but like more different languages in engaged in theater, and not just spoken languages, obviously as well. Um, yeah, greater accessibility, and I think what I would also want to see more of in theater is, um, I think, just less barriers uh, to artists and audiences alike. Um, yeah. So yeah, I think about my own community and how like newcomer communities aren't necessarily folks that a lot of theater companies will reach out to right away, unless it's like in their mandate or whatever. But yeah, I think just engaging with this is again in more of a Toronto context, but like, no, everywhere actually. Just recognizing that there's so much vibrancy in the landscapes that we're in, and the people, and just trying to make space for all of those things. And I just like a willingness to actually have those uncomfortable conversations, um, because yeah, and just like acknowledging that those discomfort, like those uncomfortable conversations that bring discomfort isn't scary, and is actually part of the work. Like this is why I'm in theater, actually. So,
Yeah. Absolutely. Like the world is so interesting and complex, and we're doing a disservice to ourselves and to everyone around us if we don't try and, communicate that. So in your job, you're working with like media all the time. What is a piece of media that you could talk about for hours? It could be a magazine, a book, a TV show that you love, something that really like you could do a TED talk on.
wow. Then I could do a TED talk on. um
It doesn't have to be a TED talk specifically.
yeah, no, for sure. Oh my gosh. Maybe, okay, well, I think for me, what I like about like social media, and also people, like what's really for me, I think maybe YouTube would be one thing that I really consume a lot of, because what I find really interesting is watching people document themselves. And I love the act of like archiving one's life and sharing that in a public forum. Because there are things that you can watch, that people are just documenting about themselves, that kind of allow for you to have um, exposure or kind of insight into something more intimately. Um, and that's something, yeah, like that's something that I'm better understanding, um, because I go kind of through this like rabbit hole of like YouTube, and then I find out really important, like interesting things about like food cultures, or about like generational kind of issues, um, or just about like what is um, like happening around the world, but like from actual people who are documenting that in real time. Um, yeah. I could talk a lot about YouTube basically, and the people that create content on YouTube. And I also started like, I think I find kind of more obscure people who aren't like, don't have a humongous following, but are
Mhm.
just kind of, yeah, just kind of like um, archiving themselves on this platform, as a way for them to insert themselves into a larger conversation and insert their existence actually in that platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And like we live in an age where everything and everyone is so like processed that, seeing that authenticity is just really cool. Um, so I want to talk about Made in Exile, which is a theater collective that you founded. You know that. I'm really curious as to what inspired you to do so, and what informs your work there.
Yes. Yeah. So Made in Exile is so it's like a grassroots community arts
Hmm.
initiative. So we do more than theater. We've expanded into film and like weaving as well. But I was inspired. So I started it in 2015, and at that time I was just feeling really restless because I think I just was like so desperately wanting for my community be seen. And I think at that time I realized that like I wanted them to be seen, but I actually wanted them to see themselves. And so I wanted to create this. So I created, sorry, I did it. I created this program for us to engage in storytelling, which is something that's already so deeply ingrained into our community, sorry, into our culture and our community, also because we come from an oral tradition, but just being able to engage in it in a medium that is contemporary, so theater. Obviously, we're already contemporaries, as also now Tibetans living in the West, but yeah, it just came out of a moment in my life where I was just so deeply, I was just so restless, and I just was like, something has got to give, or like something, I got to make some moves to understand new possibilities for my community, because I was feeling, yeah, I was feeling a little stifled and feeling like um, there was so much more we could be doing for ourselves, and understanding that it's actually really valuable for us to understand ourselves, engage with ourselves that in a more healthy and meaningful way, um, and yeah, and that it's work that wasn't necessarily being done in the way that I had seen before. And so I just wanted to try something new and see if that's something my community would respond to, and my peers as well, because it's like I was engaging young folks. And so as a young folk, I was like, young folks or young person, I was also like, um, yeah, like what can we create together that is for us, by us, and will allow for conversations to come up that might be uncomfortable or hard, but also captures like our beauty and like hilarity and complexity, all those things. And so for me, this for me, Made in Exile allowed for me to contain all of those things and have art be the catalyst for that, right? Because people who are in my programs, like they don't necessarily come out being like self-identifying as an artist at the end, but there is something that is transformative or generative in that process that I hope makes them just a little healthier, a little like braver, happier. Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's so inspiring to see someone who just saw that something was missing and said, okay, well, I'll put it out there. I mean, that's truly really cool. Okay, our penultimate question. What would your perfect day look like?
Oh wow. Okay. For sure, like 8 hours of rest, like waking up after having like plentiful rest. Um, and then wow, it would be, yeah. Wow. Okay. Sleep. Well, maybe because I'm so sleep deprived, I'm like, I just,
Just
but
sleep. Just let me sleep, please.
yeah, wake up from a well rested day, have it be super sunny and warm. Um, and yeah, be able to I don't know. This is a very tricky question again because I imagine myself in different places and not in Toronto. But
Without boundaries, just like
without boundaries,
imagine
yeah,
like travel doesn't exist. You can just teleport. I want to
right.
hear like perfect,
Oh
perfect
yeah, then
day.
it would. Yeah, I would wake up, beautiful sleep, make myself like some delicious tea, and then be able to go outside and be greeted by like a huge valley and humongous mountains. And there can be a beautiful little stream. But yeah, it would just be like quiet solitude, striking landscape to kind of be absorbed into, um, and just spend like a whole day like outside, and um, and then sleep and then do it again the next day.
Honestly, really fits with the current desires, which is let me sleep and let me be outside.
Exactly.
Okay, so we're coming up on our 20th question, and to wrap everything up, um, I mean, like 20 questions. I mean, we're doing this because Paprika has been running for 20 years, and
Right.
um, I mean, with Paprika, we're kind of like looking towards the future of everything and trying to create artists who can go on and do all the things that they want to. And so, what I want for you to do is to finish this sentence. Okay, the future of theater is blank.
Hmm. The future of theater is community engaged and informed.
Fantastic. Okay. Oh.
Right.
Okay. And that concludes our 20 questions for Paprika's 20th anniversary. Um, Yeah, it was really wonderful to talk with you. I mean, obviously, it's like so inspiring to see someone who, like, was in, this festival that I'm now a part of, and also someone who looks like me and is in this industry and, making stuff that is like so cool and innovative. Yeah, I
Well,
mean,
thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and happy 20th anniversary to Paprika.
yay!
And I'm so happy that you're doing this work, and you feel good about this work that you're doing. And that's kind of a great place to be, especially in the time that we're in right now. And so um, I'm really grateful for my opportunity and experience in Paprika, because that's most definitely informed and um, yeah, I've been a part of that journey of where I am right now. And so um, for everyone that's had the opportunity to be in Paprika, like it's yeah, I hope, I'm really happy that they all have that opportunity to engage and have a little, um, well, for me, not a little, actually, quite a bit of experience and growth in a very contained, held program like Paprika.